get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet. That doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with homesteading off the grid. And a very beautiful morning we're having here. My wife made it back from Las Vegas on her girls trip. They take a couple of girls trips throughout the year. She brought me this wonderful coffee mug here from Grand Canyon West. Check out that beautiful crepe myrtle behind me in full bloom. It's pretty early. It's not even 7 yet as of this recording. And man, look at all those flowers. What are those? Marigolds, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, wait, this is social media. I don't even have to tell you that. You will anyway. I always have my first cup on the hammock, watching the sun come up over the pond and over the, give you a view of that. Oh man, what are they? The mimosas are still in bloom. See the mimosas above the carport? I like to watch the sun come up. Then I'll have my second cup of coffee, which I never drink in entirety, while I walk around the property, checking things out. So you're probably saying, hey, oh, and by the way, I do have an important message for you here. Listen, most of your friends are not your friends, as in like almost all of them, and I'm going to get to that here in a minute. And no, it's not Crazy Lake being some antisocial, crazy combat war vet hiding behind a locked gate that doesn't want to deal with people. Crazy Lake's just spitting facts. And I think for those of you over 40 who've actually got some real life experiences, you'll be listening and you'll be saying, yeah, he's right. But before we get to that, you're probably saying, where's the rest of the chickens? Because we had a dozen. And didn't you have them over here? Well, I'm going to show you where we had them. Listen, I recently talked in the last couple of videos about meeting a gentleman over in the Philippines on our last trip over there named Andrew, a very successful entrepreneur / small business owner. Well, actually big business owner now. And Andrew, if you're watching, hey buddy, hope you're well over there. But he and I and our friend Ray, who's a successful business person, sold software. Both of these gentlemen are from England. They've spent time all over the world. Ray's now in real estate. We were talking about the beauty of one of the most beautiful parts of being successful and becoming affluent and getting to where you have excess pretty much everything, is how you can bless others, how you can help those who are in need, or simply do things for people because you want to. We didn't need 12 chickens. So what I will say, without going into detail, is that there are several individuals who have been blessed with chickens as of late. 3's enough for us. They're all laying now. Our needs are met. We wanted to bless some individuals, and we did. So here's where the chickens were, by the way. And I've been in here the last couple of days clearing this out. I'm making, and here's the pen they were in. I figured, you know what? I've got this awesome predator-proof pen here. Why not use it to have a raised bed garden? So over the last couple of days, I've taken some used scrap lumber that I had laying around, not in use, and I built this beautiful raised bed garden, filled it with soil, and I planted 3 rows of corn in there. And on the outside, today's project, perhaps I'm procrastinating a bit by making this video, is to plant a pumpkin patch. It's the end of July as of this recording. If you're going to have any sort of garden this year, if you've put it off, this is the time to do it. You need about 50 to 60 days for anything to really come up and mature. So that's the plan for this. Hear that beautiful Carolina wren. They nest in hats. I've got a bunch of hats on my front porch, and they sleep in them every night like hammocks. It's fun sitting out there as the sun goes down and watching them go to roost in my hat. My chickens are up there screaming because they want some attention. All right, something else I'm doing on this walk, aside from showing you this beautiful property that, again, we bought 9 years ago, and it was all a hayfield. This back 3 acres here, we have allowed to reforest on its own. We've cut trails through it. We're going to walk around through some of these trails. I'm also looking for persimmons trees that are fruiting, because I found another one yesterday. Persimmons is a very delicious indigenous fruit here in Central Virginia, much of the Appalachian area. Of course, we're not in Appalachia here. We're in the Blue Ridge and the Piedmont. But throughout this area, let's go up this trail here. Cut this one out. Isn't this nice? So Yeah, so we now have 3 known persimmons trees that have persimmons all over them. I think this one that I just discovered yesterday has fruit because we finally have a ton of honeybees. The honeybees made it through this past winter. They're pollinating everything. As a matter of fact, up here this spring, it's our campground, you can see the tent up there, we found strawberries for the first time. And I attribute that to having the honeybees who are just going around pollinating every blossom they can find. And that is what I attribute these persimmons to. Here's the persimmons tree I found yesterday. It might be hard to see them because they're still green. Let me change hands with the phone because this phone only weighs a few ounces, but once you've held it up for 6 minutes, it gets heavy. So here's the topic of the day, okay? Isn't this beautiful? Give you a little 360 view. We call this part of the property our meadow orchard because you're seeing some of the indigenous hardwoods like the poplars. There's some oaks coming up. We have some cedars. But we also went through and sporadically planted. That's a peach tree. I ate the last peach off of it the other day. Here's a pear tree. We've got more than a dozen fruit trees up here. Meadows are an important part of the ecosystem. There's certain birds, one in particularly that I love. It's one of my favorites. It's called the indigo bunting. It's like a metallic indigo blue type color. They nest in meadows. So I do intentionally come through and cut a lot of the trees down through here so that it will remain meadow rather than becoming forest again, because we want to have all parts of the bioecosystem here. We want to have forests, we want to have field, we want to have meadows because we want it all. Here's another one because it's all important. It doesn't have anything to do with greed. It has to do with blessing others, and we're blessing the wildlife that thrive on meadows. If you can see those little purple flowers behind me, I'll get closer. It's called thistle. Another one of my favorite birds is the American goldfinch. Their favorite food source is thistle when the thistle goes to seed. And we have the goldfinches here in flocks by the thousands, and they're beautiful to watch. But now if we let this entire portion of the property reforest, the thistle would disappear because they'd be covered out by the canopy, and then that means the goldfinches would disappear from our property. They'd go elsewhere, but we like seeing them here. So, and of course back here we've got the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch forest. That's a mature forest. Now, what's crazy like getting at, talking about how most of your friends are not your friends? Being all antisocial again? No, spitting facts, Jack. So, here a couple of weeks ago, we were in town doing some things, and we stopped by to see a wonderful gentleman. His name's Janelle. Shout out Janelle. Shout out your wife Kara if y'all are watching. Don't know if they watch your channel or not. Janelle and Kara are living the American story. They're Filipinos, Filipina. Janelle is a nurse, and he is a nurse at one of the major local hospitals. He was able to come to the United States on a work permit, a work visa. He's now a permanent resident, working on citizenship. Like my wife, she got over on a fiance visa. Hey guys, sorry for the skip in the video. I had to go through and delete some data from my phone. I ran out of storage. I talk more than an iPhone can hold. So what I was saying about Janelle, he was able to bring his wife over. They've got a baby, one on the way. Then they're done. They're being responsible in family planning. But about a month or so ago, they were so happy. You know, we saw them. They were out at the house. They were just ecstatic because they just got approved to purchase their first home. Again, the American story in that they grew up impoverished in the Philippines, in a third world country. They worked hard to get an education. You hear people in America cry, oh, things are so expensive, wages are so low. Janelle's only 32 and his wife's 30. They're over here. Janelle is a successful nurse making a good income. His wife is a stay-at-home mom, and they are buying their first house. Tell me more about how everything is so expensive and wages are so low. Listen, I am convinced, I know in my bones, that if you come up from a place of lack you are more likely to become successful, wealthy, and affluent than you are if you grow up privileged. Because you know what suck is, and you don't want to have anything to do with it. And I tell you this coming from personal experience. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be third world poor. And I have never striven per se to become wealthy or to be rich. I just wanted to make sure I was never poor again, because it sucks. When you're hungry and you don't know where your next meal's coming from, it sucks. So as a byproduct of hustling harder than 97% of the population, man, I'm living a fantasy life. It's incredible. It's amazing. So anyway, that's what Janelle and his wife Kara have done. So, and Kara's able to stay home and take care of the babies, do the most important job in the world that gets the least amount of respect in the world, no paycheck, and that's being an at-home mom and an at-home wife. But that's part of Filipino culture. It's part of the culture that I really love. And the family aspect of the culture is the part of the culture that we've clinged on to here in our own family, with my wife, of course, being Filipino and our son being biracial, half Filipino, half Caucasian American. Isn't this beautiful? Again, this was all hayfield 9 years ago, and we've just let it reforest. Got some trails built into it. Up there's Camp Bigfoot Sasquatch. So a month or so ago, Janelle and his wife, they were so happy. They were ecstatic. They were bouncing off the walls because they qualified to buy their first house, and they're doing it. They signed a contract, and things are going great. Well, a couple of weeks after that, man, check this out. I'm going to be clearing this out this winter when everything goes dormant. It is so thick in here. But this is great because this is where the deer have their fawns. They hide their fawns in here during the day while the does go out and feed. We're being watched by so much wildlife right now we'll never see. It's incredible. So we stopped by to see Janelle because he's into basketball, and our son Daniel plays a Filipino summer basketball league. There's like 400 people who are actively involved in the Filipino community here in Charlottesville, Virginia. They have 2 parties a year. They have basketball leagues, all these things. And Janelle is one of the team captains, and he's a team captain for my son's team. And they've gotten close. Janelle's a good big brother type role model for my son Daniel, because Janelle's positive. He has amazing work ethic. He's not negative. He's not pessimistic, and he's not cynical. Those are the people we stay away from. Because listen, folks, attitudes are contagious. They're as contagious as the common cold or any sort of flu or virus. If you spend your time with people who are negative, pessimistic, cynical, not only will they make you feel like crap, but you spend too much time with them, and in time you will become negative, pessimistic, and cynical. So we identify those people, and we limit our contact with them, and if we're able to, we eliminate our contact with them. Hang out with people who are positive, upbeat, goal-oriented go-getters, because that'll rub off on you too, and that's how we live. So we stopped by to see Janelle because Daniel has a game. It's like a basketball game, like NBA 2K or something. He wanted to let Janelle borrow for a little bit. So we stopped by, and Janelle is kind of bummed out. And my first thought was, oh no, the house deal fell through. And I was like, and I asked him, I said, I hate to bring it up in case it's a touchy subject, but did your house deal fall through? He goes, nah, we're still getting it. I'm like, well, why are you so down? He goes, we were so happy about it, and we're finally getting our first house, and we're telling our friends, and most of our friends are telling us that we shouldn't do it. I'm like, what? They say, yeah, they're calling us stupid. They were saying that, interest rates are too high, the real estate market is overvalued, and that we just shouldn't do it, and that we're making a bad decision. I says, all right, Janelle, let me ask you this question. I said, of all those people who have told you that, how many of them own their own houses versus how many of them are renters? Well, he thought about it, and he says, well, none of them own their own house. He says, they're part of our friend group. We're all relatively the same age. We're really the first ones from that group to be able to go out and buy a house. They all rent. I said, okay, let me tell you a few things, Janelle. I said, first of all, do not feel bad. Do not feel as if you're making a mistake by buying this house, okay? I'm going to tell you some financial facts, and then I'm going to talk to you about people, which is a topic that is much more difficult to understand than finances. And I let him know, I spent 8 years as a financial planner, 6 years with a major firm. They've got more offices than any firm in existence. And then 2 years in private practice, after which time I left to join the military. It was after the 9/11 attacks, and I wanted to go over to the Middle East and let those folks know how I felt about what they had done, and I did. I spent a year in Iraq for that. Came back, and I didn't get back into the financial planning industry because basically it wasn't for me. This is my office. This is where I want to work, and this is where I do work. Down there's a house. I didn't want to be in an office, didn't want to be in a cubicle. It just wasn't for me. So anyway, I explained to him, I said, forget about interest rates. I said, listen, you buy a house when you're able to buy a house. Any money that you give away in rent, that's exactly what you're doing. You're giving it away. You're making the other guy rich. You're making the other guy rich. He's like, yeah, but my friend said interest rates are so high and they're going to come down. Listen, as of this recording, the Treasury Secretary Powell, yesterday, he left rates where they are. No one can predict interest rate movements. But listen, when you're buying a house, and I got this from Dave Ramsey. I like to watch him. He's a conservative guy. He's a family value-oriented guy. He says it like this. In regards to buying a house, you marry the house, but you only date the mortgage. And Janelle looked at me like, what? I said, listen, let's say interest rates are higher now than they will be in a year. Let's say they do go down. Go ahead and buy the house now because you qualify to buy the house. So get in that house, and then every month when you make that mortgage payment, you're slowly and surely over time building equity for yourself. You're not making some landlord rich. Okay? So let's say interest rates drop in a year. You can always go do a refinance, and you don't have to cash out. Actually, please don't cash out because you're just going to go further in debt, and it's going to be harder to get out of it. And we've done that because when we bought our house, interest rates were really high. We started at 7%. We're now down to 3.15%. And we never took cash out because we're not debtors. We pay as we go, so we never owe. And within months, not years, but months, we should have our house paid off. Because I don't want to be old and have a mortgage. I don't want to be old and have any debt. Because listen, Dave Ramsey says this as well. The borrower is slave to the lender. As long as you have debt, you are not free. You're never going to be free. And, you know, we love to travel. We spend part of the year in the Philippines. We just got back from there. We like to go to Key West in the winter or somewhere else. You know, my wife just got back from the Grand Canyon. We went out there a couple of years ago to check it out. If you have debt, if you have payments, you can't do that because you have to stay home, go to your job, work your butt off to make someone else rich. It's another reason I'm into entrepreneurship and small business ownership. If I'm going to spend the best hours of the best days of the best months and years of my life working to make someone rich, it's going to be me, not someone else, okay? Oh, I know, crazy Lake, you're crazy, you're insane, no one thinks like that. Actually, yeah, 3% of us do. The other 97% thinks we're insane. So, anyway, I told Janelle, you marry the house, you date the mortgage. He's like, yeah, that makes sense, that makes sense. I said, okay, now listen, those people, you just told me, they're all still renting. And he says, well, yeah, because they don't want to buy yet because rates are so high. They're waiting for the rates to come down. I said, Janelle, no, they're not. They're lying to you. I said, listen, those people are just as eager and as excited to buy a house as you and Kara are. The thing is, for some reason, they're not qualified to do so at this time. Folks, everybody's story has a hole in it. Everybody's story has a hole. Okay, we all know, those of us who are a little bit older and have been around the block, we all know you are, unless you have some sort of job insecurity, unless you're getting ready to move to a different area, or if your finances are just in shambles, it always makes more sense to buy a house and own a house than it does to rent. So I told him this. I said, there's something these people aren't telling you. Either their credit is wrecked, they've probably got so much credit card debt, personal loan debt, they're just buried in debt, and they simply don't qualify for a mortgage, okay? Or they don't have the money for a down payment. There's some reason that they're not telling you as to why they're not buying a house. And when they found out you were, they became insanely jealous, and they had to shoot you down, try to make you feel bad for making a wonderful financial decision for your family. That's all there is to it. And then he says, and this is the topic of today's discussion, he says, but why would they be jealous? They're my friends. He says, you and Dearly and Daniel, you guys are happy for us, but all these other people, why would they be jealous? And I said, Janelle, this is the difficult part of the conversation. Finances are easy to understand because that's just math. And it amazes me that so many people, especially in this area, listen, let me tell you about Charlottesville. There's a lot of money here. There's a lot of people here who are wealthy and who were wealthy a century before they were born. There's a lot of trust fund money here. Then there's a lot of fake-ass, broke Richards who want to make people think they've got more than they do. So what do? A lot of them act like pretentious snobs, for one thing. Most of the truly wealthy people that I know are the most humble, down-to-earth people you'll meet. And if you didn't know they were rich, you'd never know they were rich. But let's take the yuppies who are broke, so far in debt they will never get out. They've got so much stuff. And they buy that stuff not just because they want it, but because they want to give the impression that there's something they're not. They want to make it look like they're affluent. They want to make it look like they're rich. Listen, wealthy people, they got an extra 10 grand laying around. They don't go out and buy a four-wheeler. They put that in dividend-paying stocks so they can continue to make more money on their money. Then they might go out and help somebody with that. You know, that's just the facts, Jack. So, anyway, everybody, I heard it said recently, and this made so much sense. The world used to be run on greed. Everybody wanted to get as much as they could for themselves. The world no longer runs on greed, especially in American society. Society is driven by envy. Envy. Everybody, and Dave Ramsey says this himself, is going out and spending money they don't have, going into debt, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't even like. That is insane. And so I said, Janelle, listen, envy is one of the 7 deadly sins. It is, unfortunately, human nature to be envious of someone who maybe has a little more than you. Like myself, has a prettier wife than your wife. No offense. Just, I know my wife's the most beautiful woman in the world. But jealousy's different. Envy's natural. It's when you kind of, wish you had what the other guy had. Jealousy is when you think the other guy doesn't deserve to have it. And that's where you find out that most of your friends aren't your friends. I'll give you some examples. And I find this out, and I continue to find it out. Nobody is entirely worthless because they can always be used as a bad example. Here's our front field. Isn't this beautiful? This is where my son and I play football all the time. It's where Daniel learned to throw and catch a football. Can't believe he's going into high school this year and going to be doing it at that level very, very soon. Practice has already started, the preseason. So there's one individual that I know, he lives out this way, that my wife and I use as a bad example on a regular basis because he's one of the most terrible human beings I've ever met. Now, I don't dwell on him. I know he watches my videos. He watches every video I make. So it's not that what do they call it? Trump derangement syndrome? I don't have that syndrome with this individual. He's just such an easy bad example to use, so I like to use him for bad examples. When my wife and I first met this guy, he was going on and on, complaining about what he was calling his best friend. The problem was his best friend had become too successful. His best friend had gotten to where he was making about $250,000 a year, and this guy couldn't stand it. Well, why is that? Why are you not happy for your best friend, supposed best friend? Well, because he just didn't feel that he deserved it because, and in his words, he said, it's not like he's out there curing cancer. And I said, well, you just told us that he's in this business, and I don't know why he would try to be curing cancer because he's not in the cancer curing business. So why is it that... So anyway, we were leaving, and my wife says to me, that was kind of weird. Why would that guy be so upset that his best friend is so successful? And I told her, I said, because that guy's a loser, and he doesn't feel that his best friend deserves his success. He thinks he does, even though he doesn't do the work to achieve that success. And I told my wife, I said, let's not get too close to this guy because in time he will hate us also. At the time, we were kind of having some down years in our social media business. We had a couple of really bad years, and it was proven to be right. In time, this guy, he'd come running over. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. YouTube's recommending your videos to me. I'm like, yeah, YouTube recommends our videos to people around the world. At the time, we were getting like 20, 25 million views a month. Now, and by the way, a big thank you for this. When we put together our Facebook pages, our YouTube channels combined, we are now over 2 million followers and subscribers. And last month we had 1.1 billion views. Thank you. We're living the life we're living because of your support. You might hear some cars, but you can't see them, can you? We're down here at the forest that we planted. We call this our man-made forest. I had a guy out here yesterday doing some work on the driveway, and he's from out here, and he told us, he said it would have cost us $100,000 to pay to have this done. And a couple of years ago, I had a real estate appraiser tell me that we increased the value of our property by $100,000 just by doing this. We did all the work, and it was fun. It was a bonding experience. I mentioned my son going into high school. When we planted these trees, none of them were over 18 inches high, and Dearly and I would plant them, and he'd run and jump over them like hurdles. I'd say, Daniel, you better enjoy that, because by the time you go to high school, you're not going to be able to jump over these trees. And well, here we are. So, so anyway, the time came, and he just flat out asked me at one point, what kind of money are you making on social media? Now, this was 5 or 6 years ago. I told him the numbers. He immediately went into a rage, told me that no matter where I've been and what I've done in life, and no matter how successful I've become, I will never be anything more than a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia. And then he stormed off, and he never came back, and that's a good thing. He was never invited. I don't want to say he wasn't welcome. We never enjoyed his company because he was so negative, pessimistic, and cynical. We would try to be neighborly and try to steer him in a positive light, but this guy just hates life, and he hates everything in it. So anyway, it's funny because the numbers that I told him, those were monthly numbers back then. We make more than that daily now. So if that guy knew how well we were doing now, he would really hate me. I mean, yeah, even more than he already does. So, and I shared that story with Janelle, and he was like, why are people like that? And I said, listen, there's a psychology behind it, and I'm going to explain the psychology right here and right now. And I learned this when I was doing research for my book I wrote called The Box, okay? Sadly, another part of human nature is that we all feel as if we want to feel superior to somebody, okay? And from a political perspective, this is why it's still perfectly okay to degrade non-college educated rural white males. We're not, well, I have a college education, but I am a rural white male, but that group is not a protected species. They're not a minority in the U.S. They've not been victimized or ostracized or alienated at some point throughout history. Well, they are now. So if you'll think back to the campaign between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and I'm not picking a side, I'm just giving this as an example. Every evening in the media, you would hear them, or every day, they would say, well, Donald Trump continues to lead in the polls among non-college educated white rural males. Well, it was a fact, but the way they said it, they were trying to degrade that entire demographic. Now, had they come out and said inversely, which probably would have been a fact as well, that Hillary Clinton continues to lead in the polls among non-college educated African-American males, they'd get canceled. They would get completely canceled. But it's perfectly okay to feel superior to the demographic that gets degraded today because we're not a protected, or that group. I keep forgetting I have a college education. And thank God for that, because I'll tell you, college ruins a lot of people. It makes them think like the guy that hates his friends or people he knows for being successful. And I'm going to get to that. Ruins a lot of people. Makes them think they're something they're not. Ends up turning a lot of folks into educated fools. So anyway, I explained to Janelle, people want to feel superior. People want to feel a little bit better than the next guy. So you've got these, what you think are friends, which really aren't friends. They're acquaintances. They're people that you know at most. You've got maybe something in common with them, and that's why you've spent some time with them. They will like you as long as they feel that they're just a little bit above you. But the minute that they feel that you've surpassed them somehow, maybe in social status, maybe you've become more popular, maybe in socioeconomic status, maybe you're starting to make a little bit more money than they are, maybe, in Janelle's case, you were able to go out and buy a house before they were. They will hate you because of jealousy, which is different than envy. Envy is sadly a human emotion. It's part of the human condition. But when you start thinking that the other guy doesn't deserve to have what he has, that's jealousy, and that is very ugly and it's very dangerous. So, for example, the dude that lives out this way, got multiple degrees from the University of Virginia, but's done nothing with his life. He's the type that expects the world to roll a red carpet down at his feet and come make him all these offers, and he gets to pick which one he wants to take. And, well, if those offers don't come, he's just not doing nothing because he's got a couple of advanced degrees from the University of Virginia. That's not how life works. Well, he knew that I'm first generation college student. I grew up, spent the first half of my childhood in a trailer in West by God, Virginia. My parents are both high school dropouts. Had to work my way through college. Took me 6 years to get a bachelor's degree because I had to work nights at restaurants while taking college courses during the day. Once, one whole semester, I actually cleaned the floors in a grocery store. I'd go in at 10 o'clock at night, clean the floors until 6 a.m., go take classes till about 2 in the afternoon, and then try to get a few hours of sleep before going and repeating it. So in this guy's mind, here he is, multiple generation college graduate from Charlottesville, an area of wealth, an area of affluence, always had a nice house, always lived in a nice neighborhood, has advanced degrees, and well, by God, he deserves to be making over $1 million a year. Not me. Shoot, did I give away numbers? My bad. Gee, is he going to hate me now? So I'm a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia. I grew up poor. My parents are high school dropouts. I'm not supposed to be that guy that's making $1 million a year. He is. Well, by God, we're not going to stand for this, so I'm just going to hate you. That's the attitude. That's the attitude. And I'll tell you, it's that attitude that keeps people like that down, because that's a loser's mentality. Listen, I want everyone to succeed. I know that there's enough success out there in this world for all of us. However, we've got to get up off our backsides and go out there and pursue it. Isn't that mimosa beautiful? Success does not come to us and say, hey, you want a piece of me? No. We got to go find it. And let me tell you where we find it. Success lies on the other side of our comfort zone. Yeah, if you just always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. If you're comfortable, it's our natural tendency, another not so pretty part of human nature, to become complacent once we've reached a level of comfort. If you're comfortable not working, maybe in this guy's situation, having a wife that goes out there and works, doesn't make much money, but it's enough to keep a roof over your head and food in your cabinet, and enough so that you don't have to do anything. If you're comfortable with that, you'll become complacent and you'll stay there. If you're comfortable with not being able to really look another man in the eyes and have a conversation about manly things because you're a beta male and you let a woman take care of you, and no disrespect to women, that's your comfort zone. You're going to become complacent, and that's where you're going to stay. But listen, don't hate on the alphas who go out and get it, who get up before daylight every morning, such as myself, and who work well until after dark, every evening, such as myself, for enough years to where we get to the point to where I am now, to where I can work 2 hours a day and hit that 7-digit annual number because of the compounding numbers, the compounding success. I mean, social media, and I explain this to some of my friends who ask about it, it's like a mutual fund, or it's like a collection of stocks that pay dividends. You just keep reinvesting those dividends, and it's a snowball effect. It will grow, and it will grow, and it will grow. Here's my pond. Oh my goodness, I hope you guys can see this. At the end of the video, hang on to the end of the video, because I'm going to reverse the camera and zoom in on you on some of these fish. We stocked this pond a few months ago, and we're getting ready to stock it again with catfish and minnows, and they're just schooling. We've got a school of about 15 catfish that go around skimming in the top of the water all day. It's beautiful. But listen, guys, keep your hate to yourself. Keep your jealousy to yourself. If you find yourself being upset because people you know are being successful, you really need to do some self-regulation. As it was said back in the 80s when hip-hop was new, you better chickadee check yourself before you rickety wreck yourself, because that ain't cool. Okay? And folks, listen, and Janelle learned the hard way. Most of your friends are not your friends. They're people that you might have something in common with, and that's why you spend time with them. But I've taught myself, once I identify those people, listen, if you're not cheering for me when I win, you don't belong in my circle. If you are upset because of my success, you do not belong in my circle, and I get you out of it. Younger folks who have seen this and have been thinking this, say, yeah, I know what you're saying because I've experienced that. Listen to your gut. Listen to your gut instincts. Another problem with American culture is we're told not to listen to our guts because we might offend somebody. You know why people love to live offended? Because it keeps them from having to accept any sort of personal responsibility ever in their life. If I can be offended by everything that somebody says or everything somebody does, that makes me a victim, and I'm owed restitution. And we live in a society where everybody thinks the red carpet should be rolled down in front of them and all these wonderful opportunities presented to them for whatever reason. Or They're a victim. Nobody wants to accept personal responsibility, except for the 3% of us that do. Be a 3%er. Don't be a 97%er, because those people are losers. Hope you guys got something out of this. Stay tuned. I'm going to reverse the camera angle and show you these fish. See you for more next time from the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet. It doesn't have anything to do with homesteading whatsoever. Homesteading off the grid. All right, let's see if my zoom will work. So right there's a school of minnows. There's a catfish. Oh, there he went. Oh, there's one catfish. Over here's a couple of turtles. Our big giant, oh, over there's the school of catfish. I don't know if you look just behind the turtle, like right here. See if I can zoom in there closer. I really need to upgrade my iPhone. Listen, a lot of folks will blame their technology for their lack of success too. I have an iPhone 15, I think. I've had it for 4 years. Listen, it's a poor musician that blames the instrument. Let's keep that in mind too, folks. Get out there, you do the work, you do the hustle. You don't give up, you stay positive, you stay away from negative Neds, negative Nellies, people who are negative, pessimistic, and cynical. Get them out of your life. There's a catfish. You will succeed. Stick with the winners. The winners are the people with positive mindsets, positive attitudes, the people who will cheer for you when you win, not hate you out of a point of jealousy when you succeed. There's another catfish. Did you see that catfish?